Okay, hello and welcome to lesson 2 of this Visual Basics programming series. This is a continuation from lesson 1 where we made this clock, and what we're going to do this time is add an alarm to it. Okay, so we're going to add on to the previous lesson. So we're going to put a little box below which will allow us to choose the alarm time, and then we're going to add a button which will set the alarm. Then when the alarm time is reached, it's going to beep. That's okay. So we're going to be using the clock we made in lesson 1. So if you open that up, or if you haven't done lesson 1 yet, go back and do lesson 1 and make the clock, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so I'm assuming you got your project open from the first lesson, and let's continue from there. So I'm just going to make the form a little bit bigger by dragging the handle at the bottom to make some space for the extra elements we're going to add, and I'm just going to move my buttons down to the bottom, but you put yours wherever you want. And next we're going to add the box that is going to allow us to choose the time for the alarm. And what we're going to use, if you look on the left hand side to the toolbox, okay, and if you use the top one, the all Windows forms, and open that up, we're going to use something called the date time picker. So it's near the top. If you look down to D, there you go, the date time picker. This is what we're going to use. So if you click and drag this onto your form, like so, and then just position it in the middle or wherever you want. If you want it exactly aligned in the middle, you can go to Format up the top, okay, and then go down to Center in Form, and then you can center it horizontally or vertically, okay, and it will put it dead in the middle for you. Okay, so that's that done. But let's see, if you see at the moment this is displaying the date, not the time. It says 28th of June 2016. That's not what we want. We want it to display the time because we have a clock. Okay, so we're going to change this. So if you click on the date time picker, then if you go down to the bottom right hand corner, the properties, and you want the second one down which says appearance. Okay, so open that up. Okay, then if you look down to where it says format and it says long, this is what we want to change. So if you click where it says long, then click on the arrow. Okay, and then it'll open up another box, and we want time. So click on time. And if you look back, it now displays the time. So this is the current time on my computer. Okay, so this is what we use to set the alarm. Okay, so that's that done. So next we're going to need a button to click to actually set the alarm. So that's pretty simple. Just look back over to the toolbox on the left hand side and drag across a button and put it in the middle. Okay, so if you want to align it in the center again, go back up to Format, Center in Form, and center it on the horizontal axis. So there we go. Okay, so these are all the elements we need for our alarm. So next we can get into the programming side and, make it do something. Okay, well, first let's change the text on the button 1, because we don't actually want it to say button 1, do we? So if you make sure you click on your button, then head over to the properties, and you can see I'm doing it now. I'm just changing it to set. You can change your text to anything, to start, set, or set alarm, whatever you like. Okay, so let's see, let's have a little look. So this is what we've got at the moment. So clock at the top, and then this is where you can set the alarm. So you just click and then type in on your keyboard what you want to set it to. So I'll set it to 2 o'clock, and then you'll press the set button, which will set it. At the moment it doesn't do anything at all, but you can kind of see how it's going to be used. Very simple and straightforward. Okay, let's get back to it. Jesus Christ. Okay, now then, let's see, what do we want? So we've got our timer 1. Now if you remember from lesson 1, this is the timer that controls our clock. It sets the time for the label up the top of the form. Okay, so we did that in lesson 1. So what we actually need is another timer for the alarm. Okay, so our alarm needs a timer as well. So if we scroll down the toolbox to the timer and drag another one in next to timer 1, and we need a third one, so put a third one in. Now the third one isn't actually going to have anything to do with the time at all. We're going to actually use it to make the sound for the alarm. So when our alarm beeps, beep, 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 that's going to, we're going to use timer 3 to do that. Okay, so let's see, what am I going to do next? Let's see what I do. Okay, so we have the date time picker, and I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to change the name of this. So when we actually do programming, it's going to be a little bit easier to type in the name. So if you click on it, then go to the properties on the bottom right hand corner and go down to the design tab. Where it says name, it currently says date time picker 1. Click on this and delete it. Okay, and you can change this to anything you want. I'm going to change mine to alarm, and you can leave yours as date time picker 1 if you like, or change it to alarm, or change it to whatever you want. Okay, and hit enter and change the name of that. Okay, and remember the name, because when we come to doing the coding, this is the name that we're going to use. Okay, so that's that done. So now what we're going to do is start to program this. So if we think about what we're going to do, what we want is for when the alarm time matches the clock time, the alarm is going to ring. Okay, and we're going to set the alarm by pressing the button. Okay, so when we press the set button, we want the timer 2 to start. Okay, so if we double click on the set button, and this is where we're going to start doing some coding. So when we click this button, we want timer 2 to start. Okay, so this is a very simple piece of code. So what we're going to do, we're going to type in timer 2. Okay, so you can type in timer 2, or it will probably come up like this, and you can just click on it. Okay, timer 2, and then we're going to put a period, so a dot. Okay, and then start. So type in start and click on start. Okay. Okay, then after the start, this is very important, you want to put in these kind of closed parentheses or brackets. Okay, put in these brackets. Once you type one of the brackets, the other one will automatically appear. Okay, so this is very, very simple. What we're just saying is when we click the set button, timer 2 is going to start. Okay, so let's go back to our form. Okay, so we'll click the button, timer 2 will start. So next we're going to put in some code for timer 2. Okay, now this is the main bit of code that's going to get everything working. And what we want to put in here is that when the alarm time that we choose matches our clock time, the alarm will ring. Okay, so this is the code we want to put in timer 2. Okay, my program crashed, so I had to reload it. So I'm just changing my the name for my date time picker back to alarm. Okay. Right then, okay. Ignore my waving about of the mouse. So, right then, let's see. We'll get back into the coding in a minute. So, okay, let's double click on timer 2. Okay, so what we're going to use here is an if. Okay. Because what we're actually saying is that if the alarm time is the same as the clock time, then the alarm will ring. Okay, so this is what we're going to write, pretty much. Okay, so first you want to type if, which I'm sure I will do in a minute. Here we go. Okay, so type in if. Very simple. Okay, if. And then a space. Okay, and then next we want to put in the name of our date time picker. If you remember, I changed mine to alarm. Okay, so if alarm, then you want to put in a dot. Okay, and then text. Okay, so if alarm dot text. Okay, so alarm refers to, you know, the whole box that we dragged in, the date time picker. The text is referring to the numbers inside. So that's what we're targeting with this. Okay, so if alarm dot text, then we're going to use an equals. Okay, and then another space. So if alarm dot text equals, so equals means if it's the same as. Okay, and we want it to be the same as the clock. So if you remember from lesson 1, the clock, we use the piece of code time of day. Okay, so we're going to use that again here. So if alarm.text equals time of day, okay, and then space, okay, make sure it's in capitals. Okay, so the O should be a capital O. So there you go. If alarm.text equals time of day. Okay, so if they are the same, that's what we're saying here. Okay, so if the alarm and the clock is the same, then, okay, then we want timer 2 to stop. Okay, so if you remember, when we click the button, timer 2 starts. Okay, but now that they've reached the same time, we want this to stop. Okay, so same as before, where we wrote timer 2 dot start. Now we're just going to do the opposite. We're just going to write timer 2 dot stop, and remember to put in the close brackets afterwards. Okay, so if they are the same, then timer 2 is going to stop, close brackets. Okay, and then do a new line, and then we want the alarm to ring. Okay, and our alarm is going to be timer 3. So the next piece of code is very simple as well. We're just going to simply write timer 3 dot start. Okay, so exactly like we did before, but this time timer 3. Okay, and remember your closed brackets at the end. Okay, so dead simple. Okay, and that's that. So that will stop timer 2 and then start timer 3. And then make sure you have this end if at the bottom of your code. It should have appeared automatically. It should appear by itself, but if it isn't there, just type it in. Okay, so just make sure you have the end if, and that just ends this clause. Okay, so make sure you have that there. Okay, so you know, that's the most difficult piece of code we're going to write for this application. So all we have to do next is write a bit of code for timer 3 to make it beep. Okay, so if we go back to our form, okay, and then we want to double click on timer 3. Okay, and all this is going to simply do is beep. Okay, so what we're going to write is console. Okay, console. So console is our computer. So it's just referring to our computer, our console. Okay, and then we're going to do console.beep. Okay, so very self-explanatory. So the computer's just going to beep at us. Okay, and you want to make sure you put in your closed brackets at the end of this as well. Okay, so console.beep. Okay, so press start and open up your clock, and then type in a time and click set. Okay, and it should beep. You're not going to hear mine beeping because this is me recording over a previous video that I put out in a different language, so you're not going to hear mine beeping, but it is beeping, and it should be continually beeping because there's no button to stop it. Okay, so just hit the red cross and close, and let's go back to editing this. And we need to make a stop button. I mean, we need to turn off the alarm. We don't want it to continually beep. Okay, so just drag in another button. So if you on the left-hand side in the toolbox, drag in another button, put it anywhere you like. Okay, it says button 2. So we want to change that text to stop. Okay, so click the button, go to the bottom right hand side where it says properties, go to appearance, and go down to where it says text and button 2. Click that and delete it, and change it to stop. Okay. Right then, so this is another extremely simple piece of code. So if you think about it, all we want it to do is stop timer 3, because timer 3 is what's beeping. So we just want it to simply stop timer 3. So we're just going to write the opposite of what we wrote before. So timer 3 dot stop. Okay, dead simple, that's it. Okay, so now should be working. Okay, so hit your start button, get your clock up and put in a time. I'll put mine to 20, set it. Again, you won't hear it beeping, but it does beep, and yours should beep too. Okay, so beep, 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 and then when you hit the stop button, okay, it should stop. Okay, and that's it. That's your clock with alarm done. Dead simple. Okay, good job. Okay, so if you feel the need to, go back over the code, make sure you understand what it's doing. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Timer start, timer stop is pretty straightforward. The only kind of maybe difficult bit of code is the if clause. Okay, but I mean, again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so if two things are the same, then something happens. Okay, so in this case, if our alarm and our timer day is the same, then our timer 2 stops and our timer 3 starts. Okay, so pretty simple.